Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm happy to have my friend and a fine musician, Keith Monacchio, on the show today. Thanks for tuning in. Keith, hi.
Mike, it's great to be here, buddy.
Yeah, dude, I haven't seen you in a while. So when was the last time we saw each other?
Well, definitely before pandemic craziness, right? I mean, we had definitely before that. I think it was probably the last time I saw you play with the Full Fathom.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was probably at a show that I came up on stage and played a song with you guys.
Oh, that's great.
It was at your CD release, and Tony did that really cool thing where he was like, it was like a CD release, but then he had other people come up and perform songs. And
oh, right.
yeah, and like we did an original song. Tony, like it was awesome. He's like that, right? He's generous. He's like, hey, come up and do a song, and it's awesome.
Tony's super generous. We're talking about Tony Tedesco here, folks. You should check out his music. Tony Tedesco and the Full Fathom 5. And yeah, we did a thing, and then everyone he knew came up and did a song, and then we were the backing band.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized I always knew I wasn't a drummer.
Right.
But then I really realized I wasn't a drummer, like after the second hour. And then Tony's like, hey, meet us in the alley for a minute. And then I'm back on stage, and I'm like, done.
Yeah, that was it.
And I remember Gorgo Beach, who was our mandolin player and spiritual guide, everybody.
And all around great dude.
All around great dude. I remember him turning around to me and just sort of laughing like as if to say, you're doing a terrible job, but it's okay.
It's okay.
And it's almost over.
Yeah, exactly.
Hang in there, buddy.
Right.
You know, I was doing a lot of like train beats, so my wrists were just shot. I was higher than I needed to be. It was it's just nothing.
No, it was not exactly.
We used to have some crazy shows. So when you said, "Oh, that show," you know, with Tony, and I'm like, "Oh, is it one of the ones where?" Yeah, was it one of the ones where he was yelling at people?
Yeah. Which one was that? Was it the one he gave the long dissertation on Barrett Browning? And you're like, "Oh yeah, that one." Well, there was a couple of them. Yeah,
that was a wild band.
It's a great band, though.
Matt Lott.
Matt, yep.
I miss Matt.
Yeah.
So shout out to Matt Lott and his eternal spirit, beautiful soul. I miss that kid. I remember sometimes looking to my left or to my right, and you know, maybe I think it's okay to laugh about this now. I remember like looking over once or twice, and he was straight up nodded out.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude.
You're like, well,
we whack him with a drumstick.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I hope he's up when his part comes in, 'cause that's coming up in the next stanza.
You know. It was that kind of band. That was definitely the most reckless band I have ever been in.
And every show is teetering on the edge of destruction.
Yeah.
But they're some of the best shows, though, right?
Totally.
Because when it goes well, it goes really well. When it goes bad, it goes really bad.
I'm with that.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm 100% with that.
It can go south real quick, but if you're teetering on the edge of, because sometimes you get in a band and you get in that groove where everybody's so tight, there really aren't any mistakes. But if you're kind of teetering on the edge of, every band I've been in pretty much has always been like that, teetering on the edge of complete train crash.
I remember seeing your band, Help Me.
The Commons.
Yeah.
But then we got in that band. That band got really tight.
I liked the Commons. I really liked the guitar playing in the Commons.
Yeah.
Talk about that band. How did those guys get together?
Well, I was in a band. I started that band in 1999 with Sean Galonic, who I still work with today, produces my records. Tom McDonald, who played bass, and Tom Cale, who plays drums on my latest record. So we're all still pretty tight. That band started, it came out of another band I was in called the Semi-Bings that we were together for a long time. I started making a solo record. I had those guys play on it, and then afterwards we really liked it. And we said, we should be a band, and I don't want to call it the Keith Monacchio Band, so let's get a name. And we did that for a while. We did that for probably 7 or 8 years. We made some really good records.
Yeah, I saw a couple of your guys' shows. I just always thought it was just hitting just right.
Yeah, we did really well. I mean, we were a tight band, really great musicians, aside from myself. They were great. I stumbled along. They covered for me very, very well.
That's what friends are for.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
How did you, what started your path, either in creativity or in music or both?
It's interesting because I think we were talking about this last week. I didn't start playing guitar probably until I was 20 years old, 21 years old. I was always a singer, but I was never in any bands or anything. And my really good friend him and I started the Semi-Bings together, Joe Baker. He always wrote songs, always. And he'd play me songs and stuff. And I was always just fascinated by it. Like, write all these songs and stuff. And then, him and I started writing songs together. I was pretty terrible at first, and he was really seasoned. So then we wrote together, and he pretty much guided me along on what to do and what not to do. And he's a great songwriter, still is today, and we're still friends. And him and I started the Semi-Bings as a 3-piece acoustic act.
Were you playing an instrument or just singing?
I was just singing. And those two played guitar, and we were a 3-piece. Our first show we played in 1991 at Stevie T's, which is now a strip bar, I think, in Trenton. And we opened with Driver 8 by REM.
Oh, snap.
And we always said from the beginning we're going to do half originals and half covers because we wanted to do our originals. And we did that. Since the beginning, always did half originals and half covers. But I believe that show, we did we did like 4 originals, but we were pretty different. We did Driver 8 acoustic, obviously. We did Anarchy in the UK acoustic. We did Losing My Religion acoustic.
You had to cover that.
Right.
In the day. I believe I might have done that a few times.
And then we did Sympathy for the Devil, Jane's Addiction version.
I didn't know there was
a Jane's Addiction from Jane's Addiction's first album. Like before Nothing Shocking, there was a live album they released, and we did that version of it.
Oh, cool.
So, and then we took off from there. We got really serious. We started doing originals not too far after that, all originals. And we were a great band. We learned, and then I started learning guitar because I said, look, Joe was kind of, every time I needed to write a song, I needed a guitar player because I didn't play. And so one of the Pat Baker, his brother was in the band. He said, let me show you how to play an A chord. I'm like, all right. So I learned how to play an A chord, and he's like, now go write a song. Now go write songs. Basically is what happened. So I had my A chord, and then I said, if I lift this finger, something will happen. And then kind of lifted it up and started working from there. And I learned a G, and, I've always been, I'm not a great guitar player by any stretch. I'm a songwriter. I can bang out my cowboy chords, and singing was always my strong suit. And as I got older, the writing got better, and I got better. The first ones I wrote were just terrible, awful. But as you get going and you work on it more and you write more, and even finish the ones. My thing was always finish the ones, even if they're bad. Like you're midway through, and you're like, you know what, this is not great, but I'm going to finish it because I'm sure there'll be some lessons learned out of it that I can even maybe use a couple things that were okay in it on the next song, and you kind of build on that. So I did that for a long time.
Well, and you're training to finish things.
Yes.
I think most of us meaning creative types, we're great at starting things.
Oh yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
But getting over the finish line is rare. I've got hundreds of great beginnings of songs. Yeah. And but you were practicing finishing. Many of us, we practice stopping halfway through. So what a great exercise.
Yeah, and then, I would always treat them, and Joe taught me this, Joe Baker. He was making albums since he was 8 years old, singing to the radio, making albums. He'd make covers, he'd make all this stuff. It was so great. But, for the band, we would make little cassettes, little tapes. Like, here's my little solo album, here's the songs, and tell me which ones you like, and we'll bring them to the band, that kind of thing. I mean, not reinventing the wheel, but it was something. It was like complete things, and they would say like, then that's when you learn that the ones you think are great are not so great, and they like this one over here, and then you're like, I never really thought about that one, and they're like, no, this is the one, and it's good to get that.
That's what's healthy about collaborating. To 100% self-produce everything. It's fun, it's ambitious, but you certainly lack that perspective.
Right.
Because if you're ultimately writing songs that you want people to enjoy, that's a healthy thing to do, or else then you're just writing things that you enjoy.
Yeah.
And unless you're like, hey, fuck you, I don't care if you like it, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
There's many people like that. Recent guest on here who talked about that extensively. But most people, you want a positive reaction.
Oh, yeah. Most musicians, even if they say they're not, they're looking for some kind of approval or something. I mean,
big blanket.
I mean, they are. You know what I mean? Why do you put something out and you go, I do it for me, man. Well, yeah, you do. But it's nice when somebody says, hey, I really love that song. And you're like, okay, well, that was worth it. The 4 days I spent up really late and working on it and my revisions and doing this and doing that. And I changed the tempo and that was good. So all that, I don't care, man. It's my music, man. It's my vision.
Well, I think the second you release it, you make the decision and you pay a distributor or you use a free one to release your music. I think that maybe debunks that to some extent, because you can just keep it in your phone and that would be for you.
Then that would be for you. But anybody who's releasing it into the world wants some kind of like, hey, I like that, keep doing it, or, I'd like to hear more.
Yeah, I always wanted to please, maybe not the masses, I wanted to please the community that I was in. So the band, the musicians, and my friends.
Yeah.
I wanted them to really like it. Past that, I didn't really have much vision, I guess, when I was younger especially. So I couldn't see past the inner circle.
No, and I think lately, or in the last, 5 years or so, like, you kind of, you when you were younger and when you were in bands and I was in bands, and it's inevitable that you're a community, but you're competitive also. They just did that, we need to do that, or they're playing there, we got to get a show there, and now I'm not chasing anything anymore. I don't have that anymore, and that's for the younger guys to do that, and I'm sure that there's band rivalries or anything, but the community of people now I just root for people. I'm happy, like, hey, Rick just put out a new album, that's great for Rick, I'm happy, I can't wait to hear what he's doing, or Arlen or George Worth or any of those guys. I'm just like, wow, this is great, I can't wait to hear what they're doing. I really try to reach out to people when they put something out and say, hey, I listened to your thing, I really liked it. That's good. It's good, man. It's glad to hear you're doing new music. I make an effort to do that. And I'm not just blowing smoke. I really do enjoy it, and I want to tell them, because people don't do that enough. They don't do it enough. And you're looking for some kind of like, well, somebody's listening, somebody cares about it.
Well, there's a sense of comfortability with where you are that allows you to do that. I was never terribly competitive because I always felt, especially coming up in music, that I was the low man on the totem pole. So I'm like, I'm just happy to be here.
Right.
And let me just look to the most supportive person who's better than me, who's going to lift me up.
Right.
So I wasn't thinking competitively and probably didn't have enough sense to congratulate people on what they were doing.
Right.
I was just happy to be here. But that's interesting that you say that. You have to really be in a good place to just sit and think about other people's music and congratulate them. I don't hear it a lot from people. One of the first things you said to me when you walked in the building was, hey man, I listened to your record and you had some actual notes about it, and I appreciated that. It's really meaningful, so thanks for that.
Because I know what it's like. You know what it's like when somebody gives you, did you listen to it? Or you don't want to ask them, but you hope they did. You know what I mean? Like, hey, did you take some time with what I sent you?
Yeah, that's a bad look, right?
Hey,
I sent it 3 days ago.
Yeah, what's going on with you, man?
It's only 4 songs, maybe.
Right. So, but no, this person took the time to make this piece of music. They're sending it to me and asking me to listen to it. I'm gonna give them that back. You know what I mean?
And there's only one reason why someone is sending it to you.
Right.
They want that.
Yeah, they're not just sending it to you to say like, hey, he did that. Let me check that off. Okay, go on with my day.
Yeah, I wanted you to listen to that link, and thank you for doing so. So you talked about just, you learned an A chord. So you were with players.
Mm-hmm.
So was it a bit scary, or maybe that's not the right word, but did you feel a little inadequate going solo after your bands? Did you feel comfortable enough as a guitarist to be like, I can just do this on my own?
Well, after my second, when I was in my second band, I didn't play solo all that much with my first band because we were playing so much and we had a lot going on. That band was pretty successful on the independent scene, and we had a couple independent labels. We had put out records, and then after that, when I started playing with the Commons, it was a little bit more freeing to play solo shows and stuff like that. And it was, definitely a learning curve doing that too. I started playing really hard, and I always thank him for it. Bobby Strange was a guy who kept putting me on at the Internet Cafe in Red Bank.
Yes.
And I even though, Bobby was like my first friend in Asbury Park, you know what I mean? Who or as in the Shore community, you know what I mean? And I think I played a show with him at, somewhere down here or something. He's like, I'm playing here. Why don't you come play with me? And I'll always be indebted to him for that. You know what I mean? Kind of got me met some people.
He was a really open guy.
Oh yeah.
I remember that. Like we only hung out a couple times, and it was a million years ago. Are you still in contact with him?
Nah, I kind of lost touch with Bob. Truth be told, politically, ideology, I never knew it before Facebook, and then when I started finding out about it, and he got real strong about it, and just, it's just...
That's a fucking bummer.
It's a total fucking bummer. He was at my wedding, for fuck's sake. I defriended the fucking guy. I don't talk to him. I don't talk to his wife. They were at my wedding, and I can't look at his shit. I can't. I don't agree. I don't get it. I don't agree with it. It's so fucking out there. And I'm just like, wow, Bob, man, you're my guy, man. You brought me to, you know what I mean? Let's play shows together. And that's what the fucking bummer is of Facebook. Because we never talked politics, ever. I know the guy for 20 years before any of that crap. And then when I saw it, I was just like, okay, yeah, all right, that's fine. He's conservative. I don't care about that. My brother's conservative. But the Facebook and the fucking just everything the past 4 years and everything just took it to another level. Like another level. And I would message him and like, hey, dude, I can't believe what you believe this? You're saying this? I don't talk to him.
Did you try and have a conversation?
I've had many conversations with him.
Because what kind of blows my mind when I think about this, just in my own life and people around me in my circle, is without those platforms, just as you pointed out, certain conversations would just not be happening in casual hangs.
No.
But obviously I guess my point is, but those things, whatever the thing is, and I got no problem with anybody, however they feel about anything for the most part, but those things were already there, I assume, in someone, maybe amplified because of many people's susceptibility to get wound up and go a little extra with social media. It's definitely you're braver. Mm-hmm. On that platform, and maybe that's why I never got involved with that, because I'm like, I didn't want to be braver about anything. I'd like to make my mistakes and my oopses and my shortcomings face to face, and I appreciate when people call it out, and I try my best to come around or be like, well, this is what it is. You don't want to hang, that's fine, but I'm who I am. but those things probably wouldn't have come about. So that's what's the bummer for me, in a way.
It's the utter just negative all the time. There's nothing ever good happens. Even when somebody does something good, they can't even admit that he's doing something good. Either side. I don't care what anybody is, and that's why I don't post. I think I posted one thing a few years ago, and a friend of mine, got a hold of me and said, "Hey, look, people like your music, right? You know, the 15 people who like my music, but that was sarcasm, but you're putting out this political ideology, and you're knocking a whole group of people, and those people might really like your songs, so you might want to really rethink it." And at the time, I was a little bit like, I'm going to say what I want. Everybody says what they want, but he was right. So after that, I didn't.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, there's something to be said for time and place.
Yeah, he was 100% right.
I wouldn't, if someone invited me to a church, I probably wouldn't wear my Bad Religion t-shirt.
No.
I would say, let me put on something nice.
Right.
Because I want to fit in, but out of respect.
Right.
Not out of, going along, sheep style, but like, let me not stand out. This is not the time to stand out. This is the time to focus on whatever the focus is.
Right. And, it's like, kind of like, read the room, realize what you're doing and stuff like that. And that was kind of a little bit of a wake up call. And it was right. And it wasn't often. I wasn't posting. It was just one thing I posted, and the people just like, I got a phone call, and it was just kind of like, all right. But getting back to what I was saying, that, that was just, that's how I started going to Asbury Park. Bobby started giving me shows. Ken Shane was real helpful. He got me a lot of shows. I always knew Scott because my band played at T-Birds, and then we played at the Saint.
Yeah, for all you folks who don't know, T-Birds was Scott's place prior to the Saint.
Yeah.
That's probably right when I started playing. I don't think I ever played at T-Birds, but I remember that was like the first shows.
Yeah, it was
right when I started coming up. We're probably about the same age.
And I was towards the end of it too. Like I think it was like 92, 93, and then I think 94 might be the Saint.
I think you're right. So that's when I started gigging.
Yeah.
Right then.
Yeah. So when I started playing solo, I didn't release a solo album. I still made, I played solo shows, but those songs were all written for the Commons, and with the Commons, because when songs I brought them were pretty much skeletons, and those guys really brought them out what they were supposed to be. I mean, they were great musicians, and they really worked hard, and just made the songs beyond my wildest dreams of what I thought they would be. But after that band stopped playing, I went at it pretty hard, like 2008 solo stuff. And I met some people down here. Joe Harvard was one of the first folks who really started to believe in me, and it's amazing because I was playing one of his shows he was putting on at the Wonder Bar, and he was doing sound, and he was also doing the show, and I'm up there sound checking, and he did a song, and I come down. He's not saying anything, and he's kind of walking around as he did, like real frenetically around the stage, like moving stuff and wires, and he's got like 9 things in his hand, and I'm not really sure what they are, and and he's like, hey, so did I hear a little Leonard Cohen in that last song? And I said, yeah, I love Leonard Cohen. And he was like, yeah, I could tell that last song, Leonard Cohen. And then played the show, and then he out of the clear blue sky, he had a show, like, he booked Jonathan Richman at the Wonder Bar. And he, again, super generous. He goes, hey, do you want to do a song for the Jonathan Richman show? You want to come up and play like 2 songs?" And he didn't really know me that well, and I was like, "Yeah, I would love to do that." And he also, which, stuff like that. And then, from then on, I played with Joe all the time. I played in the Joe Harvard band, and but it's people like that, Joe Harvard, Bobby Strange, and stuff like that. They're.
Joe is a special guy.
Yeah.
My introduction to him is exactly the same thing, minus the Leonard Cohen reference. He had just moved to town. His first gig was doing sound at the Wonder Bar.
Right.
I was playing, I don't remember with who. And same thing.
Probably the agency.
Probably agency. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
and he's up there with like a roll of duct tape around his shoulder.
He's being special like he always was. He said, "Oh, Telecaster guy, huh?" And then we started a friendship over Telecasters and delay pedals. And for you, it was Leonard Cohen. He found a way to connect something, but it was something that was deep for him.
Right.
Leonard Cohen was deep for him. Telecasters were deep for him.
Joe is a true artist. He's one of those
100%.
guys. Like, and sometimes probably to his detriment. You know what I mean? Like Joe, just art. He never wanted to. I would always say to him, Joe, you got that Harvard diploma hanging on your wall. Go over to the elementary school. Get a job teaching history or something. Dude, I don't want to do that. I'm going to be one of those guys telling kids what to do. I don't want to do it. I'm like, come on, dude. Just, a couple days a week, something. But then he would do, I'm going to start he would start him and Mallory started doing that. Mallory and Mazzara, they started doing at the church, volunteering, giving kids free drum lessons and guitar lessons and stuff like that. I can't imagine how many kids he helped out over there. People would donate their guitars to Joe, and Joe would give them free lessons. That's just his way. It was his way. You know what I mean?
He was a special guy.
Yeah.
Another one we lost. And shout out to Mallory.
Yeah,
I just
absolutely.
saw the other day at the Transparent Gallery. So, hey, Mallory.
Hey, Mal.
Joe was a special guy. You'd be in his place, there'd be fucking squirrels running around.
Oh, yeah,
The only guy I knew had squirrels running around his place.
Yeah, squirrels. I remember I went to his house one time, and he had, there was a cage outside when we would rehearse at his little apartment. And when I say little apartment, it was little. And we'd rehearse there.
Is that the back house in Asbury?
Yeah, it was the one on 4th Avenue, right? And we'd go there, and he's got this big dog cage out there, and it's covered. And I'm like, what is, you don't have a dog? I said, you have cats. He goes, oh yeah, I got a possum in there, Finster. I'm like, you got a what? I got a possum in there. He's running around the yard. I give him that. I call him Finster. And I'm like, what's, he's like, yeah, he's nocturnal. He's sleeping in there. And no, boy, he lifts up the thing, and the thing's hanging by its tail. Scared the crap out of me. And I'm like, all right, come on, let's rehearse.
Yeah, well, there's a good lesson in there. Like, if you feed wild animals, they will hang out with you forever.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to keep wild animals away, don't keep food around.
When people say like, it's like really difficult. It's like herding cats. Joe actually herded cats. Like, you know what I mean? There's not people who herded. There's, you know what I mean? People don't do that. But like, he would walk around the neighborhood playing his little backpacker, followed by cats. It's bizarre.
True story.
Yeah, true story. It's no joke. Like, he would walk around and he'd have Skippy and Scooch, who would his main cats, along with the other 9,000 cats that just were roaming around.
They were the headliners.
Skippy and Scooch were the grand poobah of the whole place, both of them. And he would walk around Asbury playing his backpacker with the cats following him. And people would go, hey, there's the cat. There's the guy who the cats follow him. And he would walk around, playing songs and talking to random people, and that was him. I miss him a lot. I dedicated the record to Joe.
This latest record?
Yeah,
Let's talk about it. Under a Nightlight Sky.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing the album with me.
Yeah.
I listened to the album. A lot of themes in there emerged. To your point earlier, you're not the kind of guy who goes heavy political or heavy controversial. You're writing personal songs.
Yeah.
And in this album, there's a lot about where you're at in your life and raising a child.
Right.
So there's parenting stuff in there. And
Which
is
was
that what Nightlight Sky is? That like
yeah, because you have kids. His room has
you got to keep it bright, or else monsters are going to kill them while they're sleeping.
I went over the top though. I have like my old Star Wars spaceships that my mother, thanks mom, kept from when I was like 8. So for 42 years, she's been walking around with these things, keeping them in her house. And I got them, and like I hung them from the ceiling with like fishing string.
Nice.
And then we got planets, and we got the nightlight sky going on. It's I pat myself on the back. It's pretty stellar.
Is the cover of the album is that like a rendering of?
My wife did that.
Of his room?
Actually, yeah.
Sheli made that?
Yeah, I mean, Sheli made that.
Hi, Sheli.
Yeah. And she did a wonderful, wonderful job. I told her what I wanted, and I said, I want a bed, I want a door, and I want like almost like he's sleeping outside. And she's like, all right. And I said, and I don't want it to look corny.
Doesn't look corny. It looks charming.
And it looks great. And she did such a great job on it.
It's really so charming. Happy. It gives me like the warm fuzzies.
Yeah.
So Under a Nightlight Sky, talk about making that record and some of the themes like parenting. Like how does that stuff filter into songs without sounding,
corny?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I know. It took me a long time to come up with these songs. And my son is 8 now. So he was born in 2013. This record's coming out now. I wrote 13 songs for it. 10 of them made the record. It was really weird because when you write a record like this and you're dealing with themes of parenting and fatherhood, and you got to know going in that you're alienating a certain portion of your audience. There's a lot of people that don't have children. And I thought about that and labored over that. And I don't want to, maybe people hear that and be like, well, I don't know. I don't have kids. I'm not interested in it. Or maybe they don't, so that was a big thing for me. And inevitably, it probably will. Some people might not, relate to it that much. But when I started writing the songs for it, I was just very conscious of, all right, this has been done to death. People writing songs about having a kid or being a parent. I'm sure no matter what I write, it's going to sound a little, maybe there's going to be parts that are going to be undeniably a little bit cliche because it's about love and, somebody looking up to you and protecting and, and wanting to shield that person, or not shield them, but protect them from the ills of the world, right?
As long as you can.
As long as you can. Yeah. And particularly with the way things have been, it got even more, tough, So with that in mind, I started writing the songs, and they came pretty slow. And I just wanted to cover some themes, and I knew a big thing because I'm a worrier by trade. I worry, My kid bumped his head last night at soccer practice. I'm sitting there, and my wife going, "Does he have an upset stomach or his eyes dilated? What do you think? Should he go to sleep?" And she's like, "He's got a bump on his head. You put ice on it, he's going to be fine." And I'm sitting there like downstairs going like, "All right, maybe I'll check on him a little bit, just make sure he's not, because you're just worried." And that's me. You know what I mean? But she's got 2 grown kids, so she's been through it, so she knows. And she's just looking at me. She's just like, "He's fine. He didn't throw up. He hit his head." I'm like, all right. So I've always been like that. I've always been a little bit of a worrier. I had a lot of worries as a kid. I don't know why.
What were you worried about?
Well, I lost my dad when I was 5. So I raised by a single parent, constantly concerned with, what something happens to you? What's going to happen to me? Where am I going? Can I go? And it's funny. I would talk to my older brother, my brother Ed, who is, he's about 6 years older than me. And 6 years? No. 9 years older than me. Yeah. So I would always ask him, and we talked about this recently. I said, remember when I used to ask you, like, hey, if anything happens to mom, I could stay with you, right? It's cool. He's like, do I remember? He's like, he asked me once a week. I was constantly worried about it. And that happens to kids. Like I think when you lose a parent, I think you get that worry, you know. And I always say, like, I think that's, using those worries and almost developing this a little bit of a thick exterior, like of biting sarcasm and general wiseassery to my detriment, contributed, to protecting myself from some of that.
Well, that's a hell of an age too. 5 is you're just starting to bloom, really.
Right. You don't have any memories either.
And for some kids, depending on whether it's a mom or a dad, sometimes it's more impactful. Just as I've seen through friends and my own experiences, I was fortunate. I had a very stable, sort of steady Eddie situation growing up, which I'm lucky and I'm thankful for. What was that like for you? Do you remember how it changed you, or were you too young to sort of really wrap your head around it?
Yeah, I think I was too young to really wrap my head around it. I think as I got older, my mom was great. She did everything, and, I never lacked for anything. I had 2 older brothers who did the best they could to kind of, guide me in the right, give me a kick in the ass when I needed it and guide me in the right. I was the youngest, so I got away with a lot more. But I always joke with them now, like, if I'm doing something around the house, like, and I need to, like, figure out, like, all right, I need to mount this thing on the wall, and I need this tool and this, that. And I'll call them up and I'll be like, you guys didn't teach me this. What happened? Like, why don't I know this? You guys failed. You failed me here. And they're like, what? They were like, I was 13. I'm like, that doesn't matter. You should have showed me how to use the socket set. I didn't know how to use it, So but it definitely gives you a sense of, that the bottom could drop out at any moment, and you could, you worry about that.
Are those themes on this? I didn't catch a lot of that on this record, but that doesn't mean it isn't there.
But it's definitely like, I'm here because I didn't have that male authority, not authority, but like protective figure. I have my brothers, which was, but it's there. It's like, I'm here. I'll take care of this. Don't worry about that. A couple things that happen to me, or, that's not going to happen to you because I'm here, So that, with that in mind, I put a lot of those kind of themes in there. I almost called the album Love and Protection, but my wife said it reminded her too much of, like, condoms or something, like love and protection. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm talking about protection. She's like, nah, it sounds like, you talk. It's like a freaking, Trojan commercial. I'm like, okay, I won't do that.
Could have just call it ribbed.
I know, ribbed for her pleasure.
Yeah. Just go all the way.
I know. It's so we didn't do that. There's one song on the record though, called All the Things That He Said, which is like, how, like, when your kids are growing up and they just say, like, the most hilarious things, and you're like, so and it's pretty much, I say it in the song, but, like, my brother said, you got to write all that shit down, man, because you're not going to remember it. We talk about it all the time. So I took that to heart, and I started writing everything in my little notes on my phone. Age 2, Jacob says, blah, blah, blah. Age 3, he said this. So I had a whole list of them. So I just was like, I could make this into a song. So I did. But but in that song, it's almost better in a live version, because I can tell the story before I play it. Otherwise, it just sounds like a bunch of random, ridiculous things that make no sense, But I think people get it, and that was a fun one to write.
That's what'll always be special about, like, the live gig or the performance is context.
Yeah.
Some songs don't land
No, they don't.
on record, and that's okay.
Yeah.
if anything, it makes it maybe more special to
right.
do it in There's plenty of records and songs where I'm like, and then you see it live and it kicks you in the ass.
It does.
Like, that's more special than the other way around,
Sure.
I think. You know, we're here in a fancy schmancy studio, so it's not hard, depending on the amount of time you have or your budget, to go full on schmancy.
Right.
But when you're sitting on a stage or on a couch, and things are stripped down, even if it's with a group, that's the real test.
Yeah. And my son Jacob, he's like, you know, Dad, if I sing that song live, I have to change the word to all the things that I said. I said, yeah, I guess technically you could change the lyric, you know. He said, well, I said it right. I said, yeah, you did say it. He's like, so when he sings it, he makes, you know, he thinks it's funny when he sings it in the back of the car. He says, all the things that I said.
I love that your son is into your music and is a part of your music. You mentioned to me he already has 2 credits on records. My kids care less about anything I do creatively, which is probably better for me. But what's that like? I don't know what that's like.
It's pretty amazing, actually. He, you know, because, you know, his mother is a songwriter. I'm a songwriter. And I mean, Sheli had him sing backups on her record 2 years ago. And
what's the name of that record? Let's give a shout out to that record.
Maternal Instinct by Sheli Monacchio. Get it on Spotify and all the, you know, Apple Music and all the good places.
Cool.
It's a great record. And Jacob sings on a track on there. It was his first time in the studio. And he had been to the studio with me to see, Sean Galonic is where we record, SRG Studios. And Jacob calls him Mr. Sean. When he was young, he made a Lego figure of Mr. Sean with like this long white beard because he has a long beard.
I don't think I know him.
Yeah, no.
Where's his studio at?
It's in Hamilton, New Jersey.
Oh, I know
SRG
Hamilton well.
Studios. Yeah.
Excellent.
Great place. But he goes in there. He's very serious. He doesn't like to fool around. He doesn't like when I fool around. He's like, you gotta be serious. Stop fooling around, Dad. Like we'll be doing vocals, and he's like, and he knows. He gets his level, gets his pitch. Thing, he's very into it. He did hand claps this time, and he did backing vocals. Apparently, he
not easy things if you don't have it down.
Excuse me. No, he tells me he has a band at school called the Temple of Rock.
Oh, it's a great name.
I'm not sure if the guys at his school or his buddies who he says are in the band actually know they're in the band. They haven't had any rehearsals. They haven't played any gigs, but he says it's a band.
I was going on tour in 4th grade with a Prince cover band, and I'm not sure anyone knew that, but we had the one kid who was that kid that hyper creative, like already writing songs.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, like you're gonna come over. We're just gonna learn these tunes, and you know we'll probably play some gigs. My dad, I'm like, yeah, of course. Like Prince, yup. Yes. And it's so real. Things are so real to you, even if you know it's not real. It's so fucking real when you're little, and that's the magic, I think, of kids.
Yeah.
So I'll be corny now. That's like the magic. You're reminded how real something can be, and it doesn't matter if anyone else thinks it is, which is really the essence of a creative spirit.
Yeah.
And creativity, and that's all it is.
Yeah. He loves it. He takes piano lessons, and he wants to play, guitar. He said, well, Dad, you and Mom are songwriters. I guess that makes me a songwriter too.
That's awesome.
I'm like, well, yeah, so he would write his little songs, and I'd put music to him. It's fun. It's great.
I don't want to go too hard on your wife here, but she had an album called Maternal Instinct, and she wouldn't let you write an album called Love and Protection. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sheli.
I know. What's up with that?
Yeah, what's up with that?
She didn't like the title. I think she's right, because I searched longer, and Under a Nightlight Sky came to me, so I'm like...
And the artwork, so everything pairs.
Right. Right, so...
I had to get that in.
No.
That was just like zzz in my brain. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
She didn't want to be upstaged on the
I know.
Lovely, sensitive title.
I know. I'll be honest with you, though, and I'm sure you might give your children the same advice. Like, I'm happy that he wants to play instrument and he, you know, dreams of having a band and all that stuff. But if he said, I'm not into that, I want to do something else, I'd be like, okay, cool. Because it's a road of disappointment. If you're in the game and if you want to do it full time and go for it and do it, it's a lot of disappointment, man. And I don't know if especially now, I wouldn't even be able to begin to navigate what that world looks like. I'm sure it's a lot easier, and I'm sure it's completely different, and I'm learning a little bit about it, promoting this new record. But
yeah, you're absolutely right. Well,
I mean,
well, it's like a microcosm of that life is going on an independent tour, where
which
for
is awesome,
23
right?
hours a day is mind-numbing boredom, frustration, and arguing with people if you're in each other's face all the time, and then 1 hour of ultimate bliss.
And then going back and sleeping in a disgusting van, like you're in an aluminum envelope.
Yeah.
And your freaking roof is here. And you're
who was the snoring guy?
Oh, I was a snoring guy.
You were the guy?
Oh, I was the guy.
Damn.
Brutal. No, and that, but look, wouldn't trade any of those experiences, and especially the ones, the touring with your friends, you're all over the country and you're doing that. It's awesome. It's fantastic, right? And the stories are, my brothers used to tell me, they're like, yeah, half the time you went, we weren't sure if you were coming back. He's like, the vehicles you went in, I didn't think they'd make it to Wawa, let alone freaking to Seattle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, no, I know. And then doing it by myself, those tours by myself, just a guitar, driving around, those are, just life-changing for me, because just being out that much time on your own and I love that.
Yeah, you're able to identify whether this is something you really want or not.
Right.
It's easy, I think, to dream up your success,
right?
But to grind at it with 95% rejection and failure for some years, either you have to love it or you're totally kidding yourself and you're a fool.
And the complete lack of any kind of, look, you're going to live this life, and if you don't make it, you're still going to live this same life of, you're going to work a shitty day job. You're going to play these gigs. You're going to have a shitty apartment, probably with a roommate or several roommates. Yeah. Every relationship you have will inevitably fail, right? Because they'll get sick of this crap.
Yeah. When are you going to get it together?
Right.
Like, this is as good as it gets.
Right. This is it. This is it. And you should resolve yourself to that life. And I did that for a long time, and I don't regret it, and I worked a day job, and I took my vacation, all of it, vacation time, and went and played, shows. And that's very popular with your significant other when you say, hey, I'm taking all my sick days and my 3 weeks vacation, and we're not doing anything. I'm going to go play 20 shows in 21 days. And that's it.
Yeah, that's very popular.
It was a fun night.
It's a great boyfriend move.
Oh yeah, it's very popular. But then, look, and you do that for so long, and then, like I said, I wouldn't trade any of it and all that stuff. But I like my life now, and I'm not chasing after anything anymore. I'm not chasing after the gig. I'm happy to put out this record and have people listen to it. And if I play a show or don't play any shows for it, I'm fine with that too. I just did it for such a long time, as did you. And, I put my time in, and I'm not saying like I'm done with playing live or anything, but it's not first thing on my list. It's just not. I don't know how it happened. It started a little bit before the pandemic. I stopped playing. The last show I played was with Joe. And he was really sick. Joe Harvard. Cancer. He was really sick. And the last show we played was together at an art gallery down there. And he died shortly after that. And I just I didn't pick up the guitar for a long while. and I played a couple things here and there. And I'm not saying that just killed my spirit for everything, but I said, you know what? I just need a break from this. I need a break from playing. I've had a full slate of shows since I was 20 years old, every month, forever. I don't want to play. I'm tired of it. So I stopped, and then that kind of stretched into a year and a half, and then the pandemic hit, and that stretched it another 2 years, and then the idea of doing that, like I'll see things from now, and I'm sure you see the same thing. You'll see something, you'll be like, oh, that looks cool. I'd like to do that. I'd like to do that. That looks like a cool place to play. Maybe I'll call. And I think about it a little bit more. I got to call. And then I got to pack my gear. Wait a minute. So I got to run home from work, pack my gear. I got to get picks. Do I have strength? I think I have strength.
Got to work on that finger picking, man.
Right.
That's the next phase.
I know. Well,
that's some old man shit.
I stopped using picks a long time, so I'm just like, all right. Yeah, I'm not going to call. I don't think I'm okay. I'm all right. You know, if they call me by some kind of osmosis, they know I want to play, I'll go. Otherwise, I'm okay. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I really don't.
Yeah, it's whatever you feel about it.
Right.
You know, you mentioned, we agree, like so much good comes out of grinding, being on the road, even if there's like shitty times. A lot of those, it imparts lessons, it imparts humility, it imparts hustle, but sometimes it can impart, you know, some lasting negative things. And you and I talked briefly about hearing and hearing loss, and you were open about some issues that you deal with. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. About, I would say 10 or 12 years ago, I think I probably always had hearing issues after I started playing in bands a little bit. But it wasn't as pronounced, and it was just, it was just there. Like, oh, our hearing is going. My ears are ringing from the show last night. About 10 or 12 years ago, it started getting really weird. I was just, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was listening to music, and it was a bass line that I've heard 1,000 times. And all of a sudden, the bass line started to go like this. It's like, doon, 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 doon. It started to warble on me and like bend. And I'm like, I'm hitting the CD player. I'm like, is something wrong with this thing? What the hell's going on? So I put on another CD. Bass is going, and it would hit a certain frequency, and it would start bending on me. And it scared the bejesus out of me. I was really frightened, because I'm like, well, I can't hear. What's going on? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? So I went and got my hearing tested, and, it's a little off. The guy's like, oh, it's, and then a couple days went by, and it went away. And I was like, oh, maybe it was just something weird. And then it started getting more frequent. And then people started talking to me, and I couldn't really hear them. If somebody was behind me, I wouldn't hear them. People I worked with started noticing it, and then my wife started really noticing it. So then I finally went after a bunch of specialists. One guy even put tubes in my ears, which I didn't need tubes in my ears. When people get tubes in their ears to drain, congestion and stuff like that. And
well, that's a thing?
Yeah, they'll put like tubes in your ears.
Is that specific to hearing loss, or is that for other issues?
They couldn't figure out what it was, and they weren't sure if it was like a, if I had, buildup of something, and they put tubes in your ears to kind of drain them.
Oof.
It's a lovely topic, lovely notion. So I got that done, and it got worse. And the guy's like, it's impossible. It's impossible. He's like, this is beyond me. I don't know what's wrong with your ears. So he sent me to a specialist, and the specialist did this test, and he goes, oh, I know what's wrong with you. You have autoimmune inner ear disease. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, what do you? And he goes, well, your hearing fluctuates. It goes like this. It goes up and down, and not all the time, but it just dips. And he's like, you have probably 60% hearing loss in both ears. He's like, I'm not sure if it was from playing in bands. He's like, I'm not sure if it's degenerative, because my brother My oldest brother has hearing issues too.
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
Could it be a combination of things? I don't think playing in basements, rehearsing for 20 years helped. You know what I mean? Or playing in, feedback and loud pings and all kinds of crazy things probably didn't help. But it was a struggle, and playing music got to be a little bit of a struggle. I'm sure it was noticeable to a few people, but not everybody. There were some shows that were a real freaking adventure where my wife would stand in the back of the room and go for pitch or...
So it was affecting your ability to sing as well. So it wasn't just a external...
Oh, no.
It was also your head voice.
My head and the monitor and everything. And if the monitor wasn't giving me what I needed, I was really screwed in projecting what I needed. And a lot of times I was singing from memory, muscle memory of what I thought it was supposed to sound like, which is no way to sing. No. There's no way to sing. And my wife would go like this. And then when I'd go, she'd go, I'm like, all right, let me stay on this. And I would stay on it. And if I stayed in the same key without, I'm bopping all over the neck with the capo, which is really throwing me off. I'm on the 7th fret. I'm on the 2nd fret. I'm over here. I'm over there. All these different keys. And it just got crazy. And it soured me a little bit because my singing was my thing. That was my strong suit. I was a good singer. I'm a hack guitar player. So if I don't have if I'm a hack singer and a hack guitar player, what the hell am I doing? So I struggled with it for a little bit, and I still struggle with it. It's gotten better. I mean, the advances they've made in hearing aids and hearing loss is pretty amazing. But there's, truth be told, like Sean Galonic at SRG, who's been recording my records forever, he would go, he even on this latest record, he said, he knows about my hearing. He's always known. But he would say, here's a record you recorded in 2003. These are all the fixes we had. There'll be like one fix, one note. He's like, this is your latest record. These are all the fixes we had. And there's a bunch of them. I mean, now that's everybody, right? Everybody's putting things through things and figuring out what's wrong and fixing it, right? That's the way we record now. Not auto-tune, but you can fix things.
That's right.
Right. There's a lot of fixes I had, try to go back to, and then even when it was fixed, I'm listening to it, and he's like, it's perfect now. And I go, it still sounds fucked up to me. He's like, yeah, but you're not hearing it. And so I'm listening to myself and can't hear it properly. So that can be frustrating on certain days, not every day, just certain days, because it's a fluctuation of the hearing. Now, will it deteriorate worse? Probably, like everybody else. As you get older, your hearing gets worse. I'm okay now. But, as you get older and you sing, obviously you're not going to sound like you did when you were 24 or 34. And it can be, if that's what you are, you're a singer-songwriter, and your one instrument is playing tricks on you. It doesn't really want to make you run out and go play live shows.
And it's interesting you mentioned, so the doctor's general opinion was that this is an autoimmune thing, which many autoimmune diseases are genetic.
Yeah.
So you said your brother suffers with similar issues. And autoimmune, the little bit I know about autoimmune diseases is they're ready to go when they're ready to go, but there are things we can do to offset, to set them off.
Right.
It would make sense maybe that all the rockin'
I
would
think,
have set that off.
I think it didn't help. And look, every musician that we know who played for a long period of time, they have some hearing issues. You can't be a musician playing, a working musician, gigging, practicing, gigging. And everyone's got some kind of hearing damage. They all do. Even if they say they don't, I think they do. That's just me. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm sure they all, when they lay down at night, they got some ringing.
Well, nothing. You're right to say nothing improves as you get older. Everything rounds off, and then see ya.
Right.
So what do you wear? What's the technology? How does it work?
Well,
does it work well for you?
It works great,
That's
actually.
Awesome.
Every year they seem to make more improvements. Now, I don't get new ones every year because they're freaking expensive as all get out. So everything is Bluetooth now. If I get a phone call, it goes right to my hearing aids. Yeah. So like, it's weird because like I'll be talking on the phone and people will be looking at me like, because it's not on speaker. I'm just talking. So they're like, the fuck is he talking to?
You say, I got the good shit.
Yeah. And they're like, they don't see any earbuds. So they're like, and I'm like, nah,
Does it also have a mic? Does the sound go out of the earpieces too?
No.
And what's the
there's a microphone.
term? What's the term for the equipment? I say earpiece. That didn't feel.
Yeah,
it made sense.
It's a hearing. It's an aid, hearing aid.
Okay.
So it's but I can Bluetooth it through the television.
Look at you.
Yeah. So I'm complete. Now with that comes some limitations. So I watch TV in complete silence. Like when I'm watching television, I'm in the room and you can't hear anything because the TV it's going right to my ears.
It's every wife's dream.
Right.
My wife's like, when can we get this going in our bedroom?
Right.
So I don't have to listen to his crap
complete
show.
Quiet, right? But when you have things Bluetooth to your ears and you have things Bluetooth to the television and the radio and this and that, the Bluetooth can be all over the place. Bluetooth goes from this, it just transferred to the speaker. Oh, wait, it just transferred. So it can be, you got to pair them. It's a whole thing.
Well, all the issues that pretty much all of us deal with when we're getting in the car.
Exactly.
Getting out of the car.
Right.
Going past God knows what speaker system.
Right.
But you have it up close and personal.
Like it'll scare you the Jesus out of you. You're like, what? Oh,
Is there a way that the technology works without Bluetooth? Like, do you have the option of just having a traditional amplifier?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, no. I mean, I don't have it. What do you mean, like just talking like this? You mean? Or?
No, like instead of it being a Bluetooth connection, it's a traditional aid that might just amplify.
Yeah, I had a pair like that, and this is so much better because it goes right in and you can monitor the sound and stuff like that.
As a musician, can you send a mix, like in-ear monitor mix to those?
I'm not trying. I'm sure Pete Townsend has something like that. I'm sure he has some kind of crazy state-of-the-art contraption, right? I mean, he's had hearing issues forever. So yeah, that's my little look. Plenty of people have more difficult things in life. This is my thing. It's okay. I'm all right with it. You know what I mean? Will I lose my hearing one day? Probably. But we might all lose our hearing one day. I don't, but for now, I'm all right. I'm plugging along. Restaurants are tricky. Weddings I'm useless at a wedding because you walk into a wedding.
Even someone with, perfect hearing, quote unquote, perfect. It's
right.
You're saying just because of all the ambient noise around you.
High ceilings, I'm screwed. If I ever go to a restaurant, I always ask to sit against the wall. Because it'll hit me.
Yeah.
But if I'm at any kind of open air, like if I'm at a wedding or something and the DJ's playing music and somebody's talking to me across the table, like, so, how do you know the bride? I'm like, I know you are an asshole. I don't know what they're saying.
Yeah.
And I just nod at people, and my wife says that's even worse.
There's a lot of that at weddings, just period. Because the band's always too loud and everyone's screaming at each other.
Right.
That's like a classic wedding conversation.
I know.
What?
No, and my wife kind of, she's almost like my translator. Because she'll, will be standing next to me, and she'll go, I'll just tell her, when we walk into a place I'm like, yeah, I can't hear a thing, so whatever anybody says to me, I don't really know what they're talking about. So if I nod, make sure I'm nodding for the right thing. She's like, oh, okay.
Well, you got a great attitude about this, and I think it's educational to talk about, too, so I appreciate you.
Yeah, it's not the end of anything. I mean, look, I still recorded the whole record. I can still play live music if I want to, and I will. it's look, most people probably never even knew. They probably never even knew. Most of it was probably in my head. You know what I mean? Like playing a live show. I mean, when you make a mistake and you go, oh, we sucked tonight, man. Freaking, I missed that one game. What are you talking about? I don't even know what you're saying.
Yeah, you're the only one.
Only one. Nobody knew. Nobody cares. You know what I mean? Unless, it's a complete train wreck and you stop a song. Nobody knows.
But that's an important vibe to have.
Yeah.
This I'm going to constantly polish and carve.
Yeah.
And if everyone says it sounded great, but I didn't love it,
Oh, yeah.
If you're anything like me, a compliment will fly over you. But if someone says something critical that you think is true, that'll just burrow like one of Joe Harvard's squirrels
I got a
into
memory
your heart.
I have a memory like an elephant. I can remember, I don't like that guy. Oh, why don't you like him? Well, one time I was playing a show. What year? 1998. I was loading in my gear and he didn't hold the door for me and he hit my amp. What an asshole. I'm like, well, maybe he didn't see you. Yeah, maybe.
He probably did.
He probably did hold the door. You just, you were drunk or you didn't see him or just such stupid, petty bullshit. When you get old, I think you need to be older to get rid of that shit, or you get even more bitter. I'm leaning the other way. I'm going the other side of that pendulum, and I just go for it, man. Do your thing. All right, you don't go on. Good. I'm encouraging. I'm going. I'm happy for everybody.
You got to lean into the good. You have to lean into the positive and be realistic about your limitations and the way nature is bending you, whichever way nature is bending you, and
the amount.
It's a good way to be.
I mean, the amount of look. If my wife was here right now, she's like, "Yeah, tell him that when he comes home from a really shitty day at work." Everybody has bad. I'm not saying I'm Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky or something like that. What I'm saying is that at the end of the day, I'm pretty content to lay down in my bed and know that my son's in his room, my wife's next to me, and we're okay. The house is secure. Everything's good. We're here. We made it through the day. Tomorrow's another day. That might sound really simple, but that's okay with me. You know what I mean? That is really simple. I don't know. I take comfort in that. Everyone's where they're supposed to be.
Those are wise words. I'm glad I'm here right now with you having this conversation. Folks, you should check out Keith Monaccio's latest album, Under a Nightlight Sky, and enjoy the artwork by Sheli Monacchio. And check out her records as well, Maternal Instinct,
yes,
and maybe others. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, man. Pleasure to be here. You're an old friend. First time I met you was at the agency CD release party with Coley Bryce, working the door.
He was siphoning all of our money. So we never got paid that night. That was Coley's fault. Coley, if you're watching this, you owe me
Coley's a good
$64.
Dude. Hey, Coley, I'm sorry we got an argument on Facebook about politics, too.
Oh.
Friend me.
Yeah, Coley.
Come on, buddy.
Let's make it right. Let's make it right up there all isolated in Eastport.
Yeah, what are you doing up there? Give me a call, buddy.
All right, that's beautiful, man. All right, a lot of love on the show today. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy.
Thanks for tuning in. You can check out all the other episodes as well. And if you have, I appreciate that. If you haven't, that's cool too. Bye.